All right, let's dive into one of the absolute strangest and maybe one of the most important clues we have about what consciousness actually is. And, this story doesn't start in a philosophy book. It starts inside one of the most powerful machines we've ever built.
I mean, think about that for a second. Why on earth would a powerful magnet be able to mess with your sense of self? It's a bizarre question, right? We think of magnets pulling on metal, not on our awareness. But it turns out the connection between a magnetic field and your inner world is shockingly direct, and it might just force us to rethink everything we thought we knew about the mind.
And this is not some hypothetical scenario. Picture it. You're lying inside the tube of a high-field MRI scanner. The machine is just humming with this immense magnetic power. And then, all of a sudden, the world starts to tilt. You feel dizzy, totally disoriented. Maybe you even kind of black out for a split second. This isn't just in your head. It's a real physical reaction, a ghost in the machine that is very, very real. So yeah, that strange feeling, it's not just some weird side effect of a medical scan. It's actually a profound clue. This is the heart of what we're calling the magnetic mystery, an experimental result that points to a totally radical new way of understanding where our consciousness actually comes from.
Okay, so for decades, the standard picture has been pretty straightforward, right? Your brain has something like 86 billion neurons, all acting like these tiny biological switches. They fire, they send signals, and out of this unbelievably complex electrical storm, your thoughts, your feelings, your sense of you, it all just emerges. But here is the twist. All of that electrical activity, all those little currents from the neurons firing, they don't just vanish into thin air. Nope. They collectively generate a real, physical, measurable electromagnetic field. You can think of it like an electrical shadow that surrounds the brain, one we can actually see with tools like an EEG.
And this, of course, raises a really critical question about the brain's electric shadow. Is that field just noise? Like the heat coming off your laptop? Just an irrelevant byproduct? Or could it be something much, much more important? So, this brings us to a huge fork in the road. On one side, you've got the standard view, which says the real action is in the neurons firing, and that EM field is basically just exhaust fumes. But on the other side, you have these more radical field theories that propose the exact opposite. That the unified EM field itself, that's the main event. That's the actual seat of consciousness. And that leads us to this really revolutionary idea, the concept of consciousness as a field. What if our mind isn't located in the individual wires, the neurons, but in the holistic electrical pattern that they all create together? So one of the leading ideas here is called CEMI theory. It suggests the brain's EM field isn't just a passive readout. It's more like an active conductor. The field gathers up all the information from the neurons, it creates one unified picture, and then, this is the key part, it feeds back to influence how those neurons are going to fire next. It's this constant, dynamic loop, like an orchestra and its conductor shaping each other's performance in real time.
Then you've got the even more exotic Orkor theory. This one takes the whole idea way deeper, all the way down to the quantum level. It proposes that consciousness actually emerges from quantum events happening inside the tiny structural skeletons, the microtubules, that are within each and every neuron. So in this view, the brain isn't just generating its own little field. It's actually tapping into the fundamental field of reality itself. Okay, so these theories are absolutely fascinating. But are they just speculation? I mean, is there any hard evidence that our conscious experience is really tied to these fields? Well, let's find out. Let's see what happens when we start scrambling the symphony.
Our first piece of evidence comes from this technique called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. Now, unlike the giant static field of an MRI, TMS uses a small coil to deliver a very precise, targeted, and super brief magnetic pulse to one specific part of the brain. It's kind of like gently poking the brain's electrical fields just to see what it does. And the process here is incredibly direct. A magnetic pulse from the coil creates a tiny, localized electric current right there in the brain. This current is just enough to temporarily disrupt the normal flow of information in that one spot. And the result? Well, the person's conscious experience is instantly changed. And the results are kind of mind-blowing. This shows just how sensitive our experience is to these fields. A pulse over your speech center, and you might literally not be able to get words out. A pulse over your visual cortex, and boom, you see flashes of light that aren't really there. It can even affect your mood. This is some seriously powerful evidence that interfering with the field directly interferes with the mind.
And now we can finally solve our opening mystery. That dizziness you feel in the MRI, it's a perfect example of a field affecting your experience. That powerful magnet exerts a physical push, it's called a Lorentz force, on the little charged particles in the fluid of your inner ear. This fools your brain into thinking you're spinning, creating a totally convincing magnetically induced illusion.
There's this great quote that just captures the idea perfectly. When you feel that vertigo, the magnet isn't damaging your brain cells. It's not destroying neurons. It is simply disrupting the harmony, the coherence of the signals. It's scrambling the orchestra. And when that symphony gets scrambled, your conscious experience starts to fall apart. So, where does all this evidence lead us? Well, it points to this new and honestly beautiful picture of the mind. It's asking us to stop thinking of consciousness as a thing and to start seeing it as a pattern, a process, a waveform. You know, this completely reframes the ancient mind-body problem. There's no ghost in the machine. Instead, the mind is an emergent property of the body's physical fields, almost like a hologram that's inseparable from the light that's creating it. In this view, the mind and the body aren't two separate things at all, but just two aspects of a single, unified organism that's defined by its fields. So what's the bottom line here? First, it suggests your conscious experience absolutely depends on the stability of these fields. Second, that consciousness isn't some static thing you have, but a dynamic process that's always happening. And finally, that your mind is way less like a computer running code and much more like a flame that is constantly sustaining a pattern. So the crucial point, the real takeaway, is that we need to shift our whole metaphor. For decades, we've thought of the brain as this computer locked inside the skull, but this evidence suggests a totally different model. Consciousness is more like a living waveform, a dynamic, coherent, field-based pattern that is being sustained by the brain. And that leaves us with one last truly mind-bending question. If consciousness is a waveform, this stable resonance created by our biology, could it be that our brains aren't creating it from scratch, but are actually tuning into it? Is your mind a resonance in the fabric of physical reality itself?